Okay, yesterday we started a whole new track. Zion. Rabbi says, "V'ulai yesh lo'isif," and as we mentioned, the Rebbe added the word "ulai" in the Hagah when Rav Yol gave in the mimer to the Rebbe, so it just said "v'yesh lo'isif," and the Rebbe added the word "v'ulai." Said that the fact that Bechira resonates in Seichel elevates the Bechira. That's what the Rebbe said. Now, we're not going to see the explanation of that until Ois Yud Aleph, but that's the point that the Rebbe wants to make at this point. In order to explain that, so the Rebbe brings the Alter Rebbe from the Siddur. In the Maimer of Hadi Mayino, again, as we said yesterday, the Maimarim in the Siddur were written by the Mittler Rebbe. They were said by the Alter Rebbe, but they were written by the Mittler Rebbe and put in the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe Siddur, called Siddur Imdach. I don't trust you with my coffees.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It just means you have good taste. You might want a good cup of coffee, even though you probably had one.
Yep.
Or two.
Not this one.
So in Siddur Imdach, in the Alter Rebbe Siddur, there are Maimarim that explain all sorts of different things in davening and also in the different chagim throughout the year. And on this section on Pesach, so there's a Maimer of Adi Mayinu Lefada b'Mitzrayim. And in that Maimer, the Alter Rebbe brings the mashal that we saw yesterday. Right? And what was that mashal? The king is making a big feast, and there's at the table there are two groups of people. Sarim Gedolim and Avadim Chashuvim, right? The big ministers and the important servants, right? Behind the scenes are the Avadim Pshutim, so those are Avadim and Shvachos, the Rebbe said. And there's also the Klavim, but the Klavim are also getting a lot. Klavim are getting a lot of bones and a lot of good meat, and they're having a good time. And the Rebbe told us that those are four different levels of people who are shayach to the king on some level or not. Actually, the dog isn't. So the dog is the one who's not shayach to the king at all. All he's interested in is what he gets. He just wants his tivers and elam hazeh, hav, which is what you say. That's how hav in Aramaic means give. So what do dogs say? Hav, give.
My dog fits this description 100%.
Oh, that's dogs. And not that they aren't lovable and sweet and cute and they'll lick your face and make you feel good. Okay, we might not want them to lick your face, but they will do that. They'll make you feel good. They'll make you feel loved, etc. They're very, very good friends. There's no doubt about it. Okay, that being said, it's a hund. Still a hund. And a hund is a hund. What is he interested in? Taivas and Gashmis. That's what he's interested in. And if that means, you scratching behind his ears, he'll sit there. As you're scratching behind his ears. Someone once came to our house with two enormous dogs. One of them was what's Rottweiler or something? I don't know. It's a huge thing. The other one is not a pit bull. No, Rottweiler. The other one is just a mutt, but about this big, black, but a complete sycophant. So she was standing next to me, and I just patted her head. I didn't pay any attention. I just patted her head. So then all of a sudden, I feel this paw on my leg. So I look over. She's looking at me. So I pat her head again. I go back to the conversation at the table, another paw. This went on for over an hour every time. She wouldn't leave me every time. Just pick up her paw and do that again. Right?
Dog used to do that.
More, right? A dog. Okay. So there's Klavim. The Klavim, that was the name of yesterday's class. Don't be a dog, right? They asked me to put names on them. So yesterday was don't be a dog, right? That the dog just has nothing to do with the king. The Avadim Pshutim, who are behind the scenes, so they get from the king, but they get Kalach Yad. Why? Because the only reason that they're serving, that they do serve the king, but it's all Kabbalah's Ol, and it's not only Kabbalah's Ol, it's Kabbalah's Ol that's coming from fear of punishment, right? They do what they do, not because they love the king, not because they want to do it, they have no rutzin in it, they have no tainug in it, no pleasure. They do it because if you don't do it, so you get smashed, and they want a villain in Gan Eden, and they don't want a nice big room in Gehenna. And so they do what they have to do. Okay, so they're those people, but they're not at the king's table. Right, and then we said there's the avodim. that level, the Eved Pashut. So not the Eved Pashut. That's the wrong. The I don't even know the Rebbe talks about the Avodim Pechusim, the lower level of Avodim. So they're about them. It said the famous statement in Chazal that we talked about yesterday of the Befked Nichale. Right, the Eved is more than happy not to do anything. If he doesn't have to do anything, he's more than happy. Tell him don't come to work. He's the happiest little guy in the world. Okay, if he has to come to work, he's there on time, does his work, doesn't waste a minute. Serious guy. Tell him he doesn't have to go there. No problem. More than happy. Tachnan. Right. Okay, and then we got into the difference between the avodim chashuvim and the sarim gedolim. The avodim chashuvim get a geschmack from Kabbalah Soul. It's all Kabbalah Soul. They're doing it not so much from love, but from Kabbalah Soul. They're doing what they have to do because they're committed to it and they have to do it, but they enjoy it. They have ratzon. Right? The mushal carrying rocks. 50 pounds of rocks hurts, goes up the mountain, your legs hurt, your eyes hurt, everything hurts. Okay, what if you're carrying diamonds? Those are your diamonds. You're more excited. You're so excited to carry your diamonds up the hill. You have a back full of diamonds. The person's very excited. It's hard work to carry the diamonds, but there also is diamonds. He loves his diamonds. We're waiting for another mushal. From someone didn't like that motion.
I still don't like that motion.
It's too bad. So find another one.
I actually did think of one.
Oh, okay. No, let's hear. We'll decide. We don't like yours. What's
That's
yours?
fine. I think that it probably makes more sense to say.
Don't say that. Just say your motion.
Okay.
Don't say that. You're talking about the Chafetz Chaim and Zalman Gopin, and you're going to say that what you say makes sense. So don't say that. Just say this is what I thought.
I think it depends on the destination rather than the item you're actually carrying.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if the mushal is for the diamonds to be the avoida, it's always going to be diamonds because it's mitzvahs. However, if you're just carrying diamonds to a random location that has no significance to you and no meaning to you, then it's going to be a burden regardless of what you're carrying. But if you're carrying it to somewhere that is like important, that's important to you, then it's going to bring you a geschmack. It's going to bring you this joy. It's going to bring you this importance to it.
Okay. So, Josh, I love you dearly. The Rebbe is going to show you that what you just said is the lowest level of effort.
Okay.
Because it's about where I'm going. Right? If I'm carrying diamond, the pshat in the first mashal is, do I think mitzvahs are rocks or do I think mitzvahs are diamonds? If I appreciate the godliness of the mitzvah, no matter how hard it is, I'll do it with ratzon. But I might think it's a rock. I don't really relate to the fact that it's holiness. I know I have to do it because if I don't do it, I'm going to get smashed. But I don't relate to the holiness of it. That's the rock. Right? If I relate to the holiness of it, I realize I'm carrying the Eibishter on my back. Wow! He's heavy. What do I care? It's the
Well, I don't think
Eibishter,
someone
my
cares
diamonds.
if they carry diamonds to nowhere, regardless
They're
of whether
carrying
they're
up there. It's their
or
diamonds.
not.
What do they care?
Like, I don't think it matters if they're carrying. Like, if someone's carrying diamonds and they're carrying it to
It's
nowhere.
not a matter of where they're going.
No
It's what
one
they're
cares that
doing.
they're
It's not a
diamonds.
matter where they're going. It's a matter of what they're doing. That's exactly the point. Where you're going, that's the Eved that wants Gan Eden or one that doesn't want Gehenna. Where's he going? That's exactly that. We don't want to go there. No, that's exactly the point. Don't want to go there. It's not where I'm going. It's what I'm doing. Is what I'm doing right
No, it's
now an
okay if they're
action of
carrying
holiness
diamonds
or
or
it's not an
rocks.
action of holiness? So
But-
the Eved Chashiv realizes that even though it's very difficult to do, he's doing it with the geschmack because he appreciates that what he's doing right now matters because he's carrying the Eibishter on his back.
Okay.
Where he's going? Where he's
But
going? He's
nobody's
got the
gonna-
Eibishter on his
but
back.
Nobody's going to care whether they carry diamonds or rocks, I think. Like, I think that's a... Like, I really don't...
I have diamonds or I have rocks. I don't care which one I have. These are my diamonds.
Is it my diamonds?
Of course it's my diamonds.
Or I'm carrying a bunch of
It's my
diamonds
mitzvah. It's my mitzvah. It's my diamonds. That's the whole point. If I think a mitzvah is just something I have to do because I don't want to go to Gehenna, so then I'm carrying rocks all day. I'll do it, but I don't enjoy it. If I realize a mitzvah is a diamond, it's godliness. So then it's hard. Still hard work, but I'll carry it with a geschmack. That's the mushal. I don't have to like the mushal, but that's the mushal. Right?
It's like the Alter Rebbe says, I don't want your gun in.
Oh, wait, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Oh, you're so deep. That's the next step in the mimer. Wait until you see what the Rebbe says here today. It's gonna just be crazy where we're going, right? Okay, so then the Rebbe explained the Eved who does it b'rotzim tainuk, and then, but I'm glad you thought about it. That's the most important part, because if we think about these things, our life changes. And but there's still the Eved Choshev is still doing it mitzad Kabbalas Ol. That's the difference in the Eved and the Ben. And then there's the Sarim. We just got to the Sarim, which is the middle of the big paragraph on page Kuf Hey. Right? The last thing we said is, if you find the first word on the line, Shereitzim, with a different font. It's talking about those avodim. They look forward to doing things for the king. Therefore, they belong at the king's table. Beyond them, this is the last thing we say. These are the ministers. They understand how the meluka works, the kingship. Therefore, a lot of the things that actually happen through them. The king doesn't even get involved. They do what has to be done. They also appreciate the greatness of the king. Because of this, they love the king. They appreciate the greatness of the king. And that, remember, the Rebbe added that word rak. Rabbi Yol wrote it in, and the Rebbe added the word rak. There already isn't only Kabbalah Soul, there still has to be Kabbalah Soul, that's Rashis of Vedi Vikar Visharsha, but Elo Gam Mitzad Av, there's also love. Now the Rebbe said, that's where we got to yesterday. Now we mentioned this at the end of Shiur, here we'll see it. But Sarim Gufa, but in the Sarim themselves, Yeshnam Kama B'Kama Darkness. There's a number of levels. Shenech Lokes B'Chlolis L'Shtayim, that are divided up in basically into two. Sarim Stam, just Sarim, the Sarim Gedolim, because it does say Sarim Gedolim. If you're saying Sarim Gedolim, that means there's Sarim who aren't Gedolim. Right? So that's the diuk the Rebbe is making in the Alter Rebbe's mashal. Right? If you just say Sarim, you don't have to say Sarim Gedolim. No, evidently there's Sarim Gedolim and there's regular Sarim. So now we would know that in terms of how governments work. Right? There's what's called the inner cabinet, and then there's the basic cabinet. The inner cabinet is 3, 4, 5 people who sit with the prime minister, the president, whoever it happens to be. Right? And those are the Sarim Gedolim. In America, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, who's now the Secretary of War, right? And, whatever. I feel Secretary of Finance, right? The people who are, most responsible for the things going on and that are affecting people day to day, right? Secretary of Transportation, okay, he's an important guy. He's doing important work, but I don't know whether he's sitting in on every single meeting. Okay. So there's Sarim and Sarim Gedolim, the Rebbe says. Heim behetem, so therefore, these 3 different groups of people that are sitting with the king at the king's table, the Avadim Chashuvim, the Sarim and the Sarim Gedolim, right? Yeshlaim, I'm sorry. The gimmel sugim elu, these 3 types of people, Shenimtzam b'shulchan hamelech Avadim Chashuvim, that's the inner cabinet, Sarim, regular ministers, the Sarim, Avadim Chashuvim, the important, the top civil servants, the Sarim, and the Sarim Gedolim, the inner cabinet. Heim behetem legimmel sugim sheba medrash. The medrash also talked about 3 different groups of people that were with the king. Duchsim, Ifarchim, Ve'istrat Elutim. Those 3 groups of people that came in with the king. And what does it say about them? Shenimsam Yachadim HaMelech. They're found one with the king. Kolosh and the Medrash says an amazing thing about them. Vahayu Imay. They're with him. Oh, so that's like these people are at the table. But dugmas avadim chashuvim vasarim shenimsam b'shulchan hamelech, like these people who are found at the king's table in the Alter Rebbe's mashal. Now, that the Rebbe is about to say an amazing thing. Now, obviously, the pshat in that medrash is what we've been saying all along, that we're talking about different levels of Avodah Zarah or shituf or mistakes in that realm. But wait until we see what the Rebbe is about to say relative to who's at the table. Val pize yesh leim. Gam shakavon bepashtus. Even though the simple pshat is, as we've been saying throughout the whole Maimer, beduchsin v'chulei. And that means what? What does that mean? La ayin sarim de noiga kamuva li'ilmi adrushim. Okay, when we say the 70 sarim, the 70 ministers of noiga, which are malachim, which are responsible for klipa. The malachim that are the conduit for klipa coming into the world, the metaphysical sources of these of the klipa, the ayin sarim, which correspond to the 70 nations of the world. Okay. So that's called the ayin sarim in Kabbalah, and it's borrowed in Chassidus. Fine, so that's what we're talking about, right? Intermediaries, but intermediaries that are not mamish kedusha, right? That's what we said, right? And the person could get stuck in the intermediary, and that would be a vedazara, a shituf, whatever it was. That's a simple shot. Now look at what this says. Mikol mokim, zeh shemedayik, that which it says very carefully, shaduchsin hayu imay, they're with him. That means they should be like the people at the table. They should have a connection to Kedusha. If we're going to say simple pshat, which is pshat, the ayin sarim, so that's ayin sarim to noigo. Noigo, of course, is klipa. Klipa is noigo. Whereas if we're saying the duchsin hayu imoy, which is what it says, hu bichdei l'ramez, that's the hint. Again, the pshat's the pshat, but there's also a deeper level that's hinted at, the Rebbe says. Shemedaber kan, that we're talking here in the Medrash, loirak ba'ayin sarim, not only in the 70 malachim that are responsible for the existence of yesh in this world, shehem yesh v'davar bifnei atzma, and they themselves are a state of yesh, right? Malachim are yesh, right? And these are the states of yesh that are responsible for klipa down here in the world. Not only talking about that. Dugmas avodim apechusim, and that's like the avodim that are behind me'achrei rechayim, the ones who aren't at the table, they're in the kitchen. Shemekemem hu michutz l'shulchan hamelech, they don't belong at the king's table because they don't really have a relationship with the king, or at least not the type of relationship that one is supposed to have. But who can we be talking about? The Rebbe says. Meaning, when that medrash says there's someone called a pikach, and he doesn't even go for these 3 different levels of reality that are with the king. Who's it talking about in Panemius, the Rebbe says? Gamba malachim. It's also talking about malachim, real malachim, like not malachim of klip meaning, but malachim, the Ayin Sarim are also real malachim. The malachim, shem batelim lalukus, who are bottled to the Eibishter. Ulamayla yeser, the spheres to Atzilus, even the spheres of Atzilus, Shiur v'chayu v'garmu ichad, which are one with the Eibishter, Shem Tamidi Mamelech. Rabbi just changed the whole world here. Who's this Pikach? What doesn't he want? What's he willing to forego? They're offering him a trip to Atzilus. What's in Atzilus? Elokus. Mainly they offer him a trip to Elam Abriya, which is Gan Eden. Right? And what's there? Malachim, holy Malachim, though. Malachim were brought up to the Eibishter. There's a revelation of Elokus there that's really quite astounding. What did Chazal say about one moment in Gan Eden, one moment in Elam Haba, one moment in Elam Haba is greater than all, one moment of pleasure. Yofa Shacha Shel Keres Ruach, Be'elam Haba Mikol Chai Elam Hazeh. Right? The same Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says one moment of Chuvin Ma'asim Tevim in this world is greater than all of Elam Haba. Right? In other words, in order to experience pleasure, where will you get great pleasure? One moment of pleasure in Elam Haba is greater than all of the pleasure that could possibly be experienced in 6,000 years of the world's history, all of the physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual pleasure that has ever been experienced in this world. One moment in Elam Haba is better than all of that. That's what Chazal say. Not what you and I can get, but everything that could ever be experienced in this world, ever has been or will be. One moment in Elam Haba is better than that. Wow. Okay, that's why Rabbi Meir davened that his Rebbe should be led into Gan Eden, right? They said he doesn't have a chelik in Gan Eden. Rabbi Meir davened, and what was the pshara? How was Acher led into Gan Eden? 1,000 years of Gehenna. Right? After 1,000 years of Gehenna, he was allowed into Gan Eden. And that was worth it. Rabbi Meir said that 1,000 years of Gehenna is worth it. Right? What's 1,000 years of Gehenna? So generally a neshama maximum, unless a mamish a Russia, and that's why we only say Kaddish for 11 months. We say Kaddish for 11 months because unless someone's mamish a Russia Gomor, they spend 11 months in Gehenna to cleanse themselves before they go to Gan Eden. Right? So that's why we say Kaddish for 11 months. We don't say Kaddish for 12 months. Right? 12 months is a Russia Gomor. Right? Okay. That's an Indian in Kibbutz Avei. It's interesting. I never knew this, but a friend of mine was saying Kaddish for another friend, and he was saying Kaddish into the 12th month. And I asked him, and he said, because if you're saying Kaddish for someone who's not your parent, just someone who's getting paid to say Kaddish for someone, so they say for 12 months. There's no Indian in Kibbutz Avei to say that Chas V'Shalom to say about my parent that they were there into the 12th month. So they say for 12 months. But generally, a child says 11 months. That's what we do. Okay, fine. What's Gehenna? So I don't know. Right? Hope not to. But Chazal say that one moment in Gehenna is like 60 years of the afflictions of Job. Right? You ever read the book of Job? A little bit? Wow. The Eibishter beat the living daylights out of him. It's just unbelievable what the Eibishter did to poor Eov. Right? So they say one moment in Gehenna is like 60 years of Eov. So Rabbi Meir made a cheshbon and said it's worth it for my Rebbe to be in Gehenna for 1,000 years. I mean, that's a lot of 6 times 60 years of Eov in order to get to Gan Eden. No, don't worry about it. We don't have to do the calculation. We can live without it. That way you don't have to touch our phone. Right? Okay? Right? Right? So what? 60? No. It's a moment, not a year. A moment. A moment.
Well, then what's a moment? Yeah.
Okay. So, sounds like Gan Eden's pretty good. That's not even Atzilus. That's Elam Abriya. Upper level Gan Eden is an Elam Abriya. Lower level Gan Eden is Elam Yetzira. Right? Most neshamas go to Elam Yetzira first. After a while, hopefully, they're elevated through all the good deeds that their descendants are doing down here. They're elevated to Elam Abriya. They can't do anything up there. The ones they left down here can do stuff for them. Okay. That's why you say Le'ilui Nishmas, for the elevation of the neshama of someone. That's what it means. They should go from Yetzira to Bria, higher levels in Bria. Okay. So here we're not even talking about, we're talking about that. That's Malachim. And Atzilus, the Rebbe says. Whoa. The Pikach he's not interested in Atzilus. What does he want? The Melech. But it's going to get worse. It's not in this time where it's just, it's on the back burner so far. That even Elam Atzilus, that's the panemius of it all, the Rebbe said. Who's the Pikach? Not interested in Elam Atzilus. If you were to tell him that I can do this mitzvah and I'll get you to Elam Atzilus and you'll experience a level of godliness that is beyond anything you could possibly imagine. It's greater than Elam Abriya, which is where it says that one moment in Elam Abriya is greater than all of the pleasure possible in this world. It's nice. Just want the king. What does that mean? Let's see. But that's the pikach in the that's the panemius of the medrash. The chitzeni is that the simple shot in the medrash is what we were saying up until now. But why does the Rebbe say that? Well, how did he come to this? Hayu imai. They're with him. They're at the table. They're with the king mamish. That means that's kedusha. That's not klipa. In the pshat, we said there are levels of klipa, right? Different levels of klipa, different levels of avodah zarah. Right? But in the medrash it says hayu imai. They were with him. So based on the Alter Rebbe's mashal, the Rebbe says, so that means, so to speak, they're like the people sitting at the table of the king. Well, that's levels of kedusha. So even levels of kedusha this Yid isn't interested in, the pikach. So there's all these people, when the king comes in, what are they interested in? Wow, all these levels of kedusha. They're awed, they're awestruck by the beauty of the spiritual experience. And the pikach says, I don't want the spiritual experience, I want the king. Not interested in the spiritual experience. That's, so to speak, where I'm going. No, I'm interested in that.
So their desires would be on the table?
The king.
Yeah, the king.
Not to be at the table with the king, but the king. Like, so it was, go a little further right, it gets more, it gets worse, so to speak, better. Val pizem moven oid yeser, goydel pichusa shel zeh shamar ananasiv malka. Now we understand even more the brilliance of the one who says ananasiv malka. The nice of lezeh sheina reitzel lekabel hashpa. In addition to the fact that he's not interested in getting the hashpa, but dugmas haklovim, certainly he's not interested in being a kelev. V'gam loy kavadim bechusim, and certainly not the avadim bechusim. Shemichutz l'shulchan hamelech, who aren't at the king's table. Hagam shashpa shenishpelem hi beribu yigadol, even though they get a lot, right? That's the Alter Rebbe's mashal is very much in line with how we've been explaining everything, right? They get a lot. They're eating like kings, literally, back there in the kitchen, right? They're eating the food that the king eats. They're unbelievable what they get, and there's so much, so many leftovers. They take it home. They pack it up for their wife and take it home. I guess I'll know this is the one I learned out of. Okay. Okay. They don't want to be michot hagam shashpash we begodol. But writes Elias last line b'shulchan hamelech. They want to be at the king's table. No. No. In addition to that, El sheina writes a gamba duchsin malachim. They don't want it to be. They don't want to experience the malachim. Spheres tatzilus. They're not even interested in experiencing spheres of atzilus. Spheres of atzilus. We learned batzi lagani. Atzilus is elokus. It's not yesh. It's ayin. It's elokus. Mamish. It's the Eibishter. Elam hasein safe. Not interested. Not interested. What does he want? King? Ulamaila yeser, even higher than that. Up until now it was Atzilus. Now it's even higher. Or Ein Sof. Not interested. What does he want? Elba Melech. Ananosiv Melech. He wants the king. Ukataras of Baal Shem Tov, like the famous idea of the Baal Shem Tov, a Yadua ala pasuk tefilu lo oni ki yate felifnei havai yishbech sichai. A pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Beis. It's a famous mimer when the Frierdiker Rebbe's capital became Kuf Beis in Tafshin Mem Beis, so the Mem Aleph, should be Mem Aleph Taka. That I think the mimer is talking Mem Beis. Anyway, maybe. But the Rebbe explains this kapitel when this was the Frierdiker Rebbe's kapitel. He brings the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov says what? What does the Ani want? Ki yateif, like he's wrapped up in his talis. V'lifnei havaya yishbech sicha. The Ani throws his speech, throws his talk in front of the Eibishter. Why? Because what's the Medrash on this says what? I'm sorry, the Baal Shem Tov on this says what? It's also a medrash that's similar. Everybody's going to the king and they're asking things from the king. Similar to our medrash, right? They're asking things from the king. Right? It's not that there's other people there to ask, so to speak. So they're asking, the king asks, what do you want? And then they daven to the king for what they want. What does the Ani do? The Ani represents the bittul of the Ani. He just says he just wants the king. He just wants to talk to the king. His tefillah is to just be in front of the king. That's all he wants. Now the Rebbe says a chiddush in all of that, because by the Baal Shem Tov it's explaining, and this is pshat in the pasuk, tefillah la'ani, which is just bittul, not pichos. But here the Rebbe is connecting that to our pikach, which is very interesting. Ulazet tzarich pichus gedayla. And now the Rebbe is going to bring a mashal for this. B'dugmas melech basu v'dam. Shebechdei likanes lakitain. In order to enter into the kitain. A kitain is a room, but it's interesting. It's a small room, and it's not necessarily an opulent room. It's just a room. Right? In order to enter into the kitain, shebein nimsa melech, where the melech is, v'lirai says pnei melech, and to see the face of the king. So where's this room? It's not right next to the outside door in the palace. You have to go through a number of chambers to get to that room. Sarich lavar tchila derech kama v'kama hecholos. You have to go through a number of chambers. Shebakol echad man, in each and every one of these chambers, yesh hoin yokar. There's great bounty, great wealth. The walls are covered in gold, and there's beautiful paintings and chandeliers. It's gorgeous, beautiful hallways and rooms. V'yeshnam ke'ela, and there are people. Shekesharoyim esahayin yokar shebehechal achitzain, when they see all the beauty on the external chambers, hem misangin mizeh b'tainug nifla. Right? They get an unbelievable pleasure from the beauty of all this. Misakvim sham, and they get stuck there. But the melech's not there. The melech's in the next room. Where the melech is, it might not be so beautiful. It might be a simple room. But it's the melech. Whereas what? The person might get all excited by all of the spiritual grandeur on the way to the king and get stuck in being what we used to call in yeshiva an ore junkie, right? He's hooked on ore. He just wants the spiritual experience. He wants to be elevated, feel spirituality and feel upliftedness. So who's he feeling? It's a wonderful thing. Is he feeling God? He's feeling himself. Now, is that bad? It's not bad. There's just something better. What's that? The king. Right? When I'm in front of the king, who am I not going to feel? Myself. Be awestruck by the king. Won't feel myself. Might not even remember the experience afterwards. Right? I was never zeicher to go into the Rebbe for Yechidus inside. Dollars many, many times, Baruch Hashem, but never inside. Everybody says the first Yechidus they don't remember. They don't remember what happened in there. Now, that's not the Eibishter. But that's someone very, very, it's mamash a king. And what's in the marshal? It's a king. It was a king. Right? And what? So they're like... And the room's very simple. Nothing going on in the room. No fancy, it's not a big fancy room. So I can get stuck on the way and get into the spiritual experience on the way and forget about the king. What's a mitzvah? The mitzvah is the king. There's those there are those who get very excited about the outer chambers. There are those who get excited about inner chambers. They have to be a little more sophisticated, but still. But dafka mishu chacham gadol, someone who's really smart, geitim nitan chashivas v'yeker shelahain atzim. He doesn't give any importance to all of this, the dearness of this incredible beauty. Hanimsa gamba heichal achi panimi, even the innermost chamber of the king. It doesn't. Can you imagine if Esther got stuck on the way into the king? Well, the history of the Jewish people would look like? Wouldn't be. The whole reason there's Yidden is because Esther didn't get stuck with all the beauty on the outside of the world. Esther understood that my job is to go to the king. Right? We get stuck with all this stuff out here. I'm sure it was a beautiful palace. Right? There's an interesting halacha. Just bechlal, the way the Eibishter runs the world. It's funny. In most places where we've been, right now, it's not always this case, right? If you're actually in Iran or Iraq, right? So then you face west. You face west when you daven, right? So here in Yerushalayim, we also face east. Most places that we're in, we face the east, right? In Sfas, you face south. Of course, you don't face east. In northern Eretz Yisrael, you face south. Right? Southern Eretz Yisrael, you face north. Right? Okay. But most places where we have been and where a lot of Jews are, so you face east. Right? Okay. Which is always sort of interesting because, you didn't go to the beach. Beautiful beach. Right? And they have to daven mincha because the sun is setting. Oh, so what do they have to do? There's this beautiful sunset. Wow. It's gorgeous. sun is setting into the ocean. It's one of the most magnificent things in the world, watching that ball go into the water. You feel it should start sizzling. Now, obviously, it's not going into the water, but that's what it looks like to us, right? What do you have to do to daven mincha? Turn your back on that and talk to the king. That's beautiful. Don't get stuck. You can imagine some, I'll just make fun of us all. Some new Baal Tshuva. Oh, it's probably mutter to face the sun when I daven because it's so beautiful, and I'll think about God so much more if I face west. And he's sitting there davening Shemona Esrei, and he's feeling the sun's rays on him, and he's just, oh, Baruch Atol. Oh. Missed the point completely. Completely. Turn your back to the sunset and face the parking lot and daven because God's over there. Right? It's so interesting that most of us live in places where you have to do that. That's just in Eretz Yisrael also. Right? You go to the beach in Eretz Yisrael, what do you have to do? You have to turn around. So now it might be, there's no parking, it might just be, some nice cliff, but it's not as pretty as that, the sunset back there. It's gorgeous back there.
We should just be making pretty things in the right direction.
You should make the beach.
Because that's where God
You
is.
miss everything. You mamish miss everything. Right? You're like that Schmerl, right? Remember Schmerl?
Yeah.
Like, right here, that just goes right over. Right?
If God's there, you should be making the
God is there. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. He's not in the sunset. He's in davening mincha, which I might not do such a good job at, but that's where he is. Not in the sunset. That's exactly the point. And if a person's sitting and learning Torah and looks up, what does Chazal say? The person sitting looking at Torah and looks up and says, oh, what a beautiful tree. Mischayev benafshay. Now, okay, there's ways of explaining it in a less severe way, but he's chayev to die. Well, that's a little heavy. Okay. Why? What did he do? He got into mamale. The tree is our mamale. What's the Torah? Atzmus. What are you, crazy? You're leaving Atzmus to go look at a tree? What are you, nuts? The Torah is Atzmus. Atzmusum is Mahusa Yizbarech. The tree is beautiful. It's our mamale. What's our mamale? Well, you've learned what's our mamale. Well, it's not even Sevev. Right? And it's not even in mamale. It's the lowest level of mamale. That's what the Eibishter wants. He wants a physical world. But Seder. Where's he? What does the Rebbe Shab say? Someone who learns Chassidus and appreciates Elokus. What does it mean to see Elokus in your everyday life? Is when you look at the ground, you realize the ground in Chassidus is a mashal for Elam Atzilus. But you don't see the ground. You see a mashal for Elam Atzilus. And the Rebbe says an unbelievable thing. What's the difference between the ground and Elam Atzilus? Right? That this is Elokus Gashmi. Isn't this Elokus Ruchni? Okay. But what's the Rebbe saying? The Rebbe saying an unbelievable thing. Get out of your own spirituality. Who are the people sitting at the table? A big oivid. Oh, this guy davens. Whoa, what a davener. A big maskil. This guy learns so much Chassidus. He knows so much Chassidus. Right? A big chassid. Wow, he's such a chassid. He's at the table. He's with the king. He's a serious guy. What does the peacock want? He's with the king. I don't want to be that. I want to be with the king. So that guy's also supposed to want to be with the king. Not that guy's not a good guy. He's an amazing guy. But we're learning Chassidus so we can learn a lot, so we can know a lot of Chassidus. Right? We try to daven so we can be someone who knows how to daven. Why are we doing all we're doing? Because it's the king. That's what the Rebbe is saying. This is why this mimer is so unbelievably important. Right? What does it demand? Complete and total bittul. Okay. Well, wait until you see what the Rebbe says later. It's going to be frightening.
Rabbi.
What if you're not holding there? Where are you holding? Huh?
I think it's a line from a poem, but it's something like to behold the universe in a grain of sand. I think that's
okay.
That idea that you're not limited to your pursuit of Hashem isn't limited to things that look nice. It's in the things that God needs you to do.
No, this is the king himself. Not what God needs you to do. That's exactly the point. Not that. Yes, that's the way you get there. But it's not even about me being a chassid, me doing what I'm supposed to do. That's how I get there, but that's not what it's about. It's about the king. That's what the Rebbe is saying here. Exactly that. That's what's so astounding about this. It's not even about me being a serious yid. Should be a serious yid. Of course I have to be a serious yid. How am I a serious yid? By not worrying about being a serious yid, by worrying about God. What does the serious yid want? The Abshak. Now we're gonna quote. Let's go weiter and we'll quote Amnon. Right? But first we have to finish the paragraph. Gam beheichel achi pnimi. He's in the most gorgeous chamber imaginable. Get the rois from da. Go out. You know what's in the next room. Open the door. The king's in the next room, and you're stuck on all the gold and ornaments in this room. And the Rebbe's talking Ruchnius, obviously, not Gashmius. Wow. V'kol ritzenu v'chukosei. What's his whole desire? Likanes lakitain. To the small little room. Bainim sa melech. V'liras is penei melech. All he wants is to see the king. Not mitzad himself, mitzad the king. V'yesh lemer shinyan zehu, and here's Amnon. Ha'ava demi li b'shamayim v'im chaloi chafatzti. Pasuk in Tehillim. Right? That what is to me in Shemayim, and with you loy chafatzti. It's interesting. With you loy chafatzti. What are the people? How do we describe the three people who come in with the king? Hayu, imoy, with him. They're not him, but they're with him. No, Peacock's not interested. Right? Me li b'shemayim. What do I need in Shemayim? What do I need in all these high levels of godly reality? I don't want to be with you, meaning sitting at the table with you. And that's mitzad who I am, because I get to sit at the table. No, I just want you. Whoa. Ukalosh nad marzaken. Amnon taught this to the Alter Rebbe. Ich will zar gar nichts. I don't want anything. Ich will nit dein Gan Eden. I don't want your Gan Eden. Ich will nit dein Elam Haba. I don't want your Elam Haba. Ich will mehr nit as dich allein. I only want you. I don't want all of these levels of splendor. I just want you. So you might ask, okay, Seder, you learn a little bit of Torah and you learn a little bit of Chassidus and you realize that there's something called Gan Eden and that's a certain level of reality, and there's something called Elam Haba, which is even a greater revelation, but then there's Atzmus, and that's the highest. So what's the big deal if someone says to me, here there's $1 million here and there's $10 million here and there's $42 billion here, which do you want? So I have to be the Alter Rebbe to choose $42 billion. Like, why is that such a big deal? Right? What's the difference between the Gan Eden, Elam Haba, and Atzmus? This is 10 million. This is 100 million. This is 42 billion. But what's the difference? Why do I have to be so smart to be the Alter Rebbe to pick Atzmus? Why? What's Gan Eden all about? My pleasure, my spiritual pleasure. Not in a bad way, in a good way, spiritual pleasure. I get unbelievable pleasure from being in Gan Eden. Unbelievable pleasure from Elam Haba. Not in a selfish way, Chas v'shalom. You're talking about godly tainug of the Nefesh Elokis, the real stuff. But what? Still me. When I encounter Atzmus, what do I experience? Nothing. Why? Because what don't I experience in any way, shape, or form?
Yourself.
It's myself. I'm gone. I'm not there. There's no me. No me experiencing it. Gan Eden, there's a me experiencing Gan Eden. It's like there's a Malach in Gan Eden. There's me in Gan Eden. I'm experiencing it. It's beautiful. There's a me in Elam Haba. Not in a bad way. Not a bad me. It's just me. I'm there. And it's unbelievable. That's the Chiddush, the Alter Rebbe. Atzmus. Oh, me, I don't experience anything. But what is there? Emes. It has nothing to do with me. It's Emes. That's the amazing thing about what the Alter Rebbe said. The Alter Rebbe used to roll around on the ground when he said this. Right? Evidently, I wasn't there. That's what they say. Dagam, that even though Shagiluyim Shabagan Eden Mikoshkein Giluyim Delam Haba, the Giluyim in Gan Eden, all the more so the Giluyim in Elam Haba, Hem Giluyim Nailim B'Yesu, the very lofty levels of godly revelation, the Admir Zokin, and not, You and I can say, I don't want Gan Eden, I don't want this, because I haven't got a clue what Gan Eden is, I haven't got a clue what Olam Haba is, and so I can be a big, serious guy and say, well, I just want Atzmos. Well, I don't know what Gan Eden is anyway. But the Alter Rebbe does know what Gan Eden is. And he still says, I don't want Gan Eden. Right? Valter Rebbe Yisrael Hasaga Bezeh. He had a comprehension of what it is. Hasaga Mitis. Right? A true Hasaga, but even in such a way, Seichel Nisached Im Muskal, that the intellect was unified with the idea, so that the Alter Rebbe experienced Gan Eden, Aliyas and Neshama. Afal Pikein. Ain't a Reitza. Still didn't want it. He knows how beautiful it is. He knows how amazing it is. Wow. Probably has a taiva for it. Still doesn't want it. He says, no. V'kol ratzenu rak ba'atzmos. Dich alain, you alone. V'yesh lo'isif, the ikra pikchus bezeh, she'ena reitze b'duchsin, the essential brilliance of the pikach in this whole story, that he doesn't want the duchsin. Hamadregas shebeseder ishtalshelus. Now the Rebbe goes beyond, right? That's already atzilus. V'gam shelamaylam ishtalshelus. The Rebbe said before, lamayla yersinai says it befavors, even those levels beyond ishtalshelus. Orein seif. Shalifnei atzimtzum. Not interested. Who? Tagam, that even though shasfiras in atzilus, miloshin sapirus ubehirus. Why are they called spheres? The language of brilliance. Sapirus, Evan sapir, sapphire. Sapirus ubehirus, clarity, brilliance and clarity. Ein mastirim al arein seif. They don't conceal arein seif. Debashpa shenim sheches al yedei spheres. That the godly bounty that's drawn down through the spheres, the kelim of the spheres, nira begilu, it's seen in a revealed way. Shashpahi, that this bounty, he loymia spheres atzmam chos v'shalom, not to think that the sphere, that Atzilus is the source of this light. It's simply the conduit through which this godly energy passes, and that's absolutely clear. You can't possibly make a mistake in Elam Atzilus relative to that idea, right? Absolutely clear. Ella she'orein seif mashpia al yodam, but rather infinite godly light is drawn down through them and is processed in Atzilus. Ubeyeser, and even more so, huba oris, that's through the kelim, but also the of Atzilus, which is even less limited than the kelim. Shal yodam mizgala or shalamayla mihem, that through that level of light there's a revelation of a light beyond it. Mikol shekain, all the more so, b'madrega shalamayla Atzilus, all the more so in the reality of Seivev, which is beyond Atzilus. Atzilus is that first point in Or Mamale, which we learned in Basilagani, and above that is Seivev, right? Infinite light. In those levels, Shal Yedea Or, that light, what is revealed, Kol Masha Ef Charlis Galis Miamar, everything that could be revealed from the Ma'or, from the luminary, is revealed in that light. The light can't reveal everything because there's a difference between the light and the luminary. There's a difference between light and etzim, okay, but to the extent that the light can reveal aspects of godliness, it reveals everything that could possibly be revealed. Everything that could come into a state of revelation is revealed in that light. Doesn't want it. Elabam Melech. What does he want? The Eibishter. Ana Nasiv Malka. That's the pikach. That's the pnimius in this medrash. That's why Ana Nasiv Malka has become those three words are a catchphrase that Lubavitchers throw out. Ana Nasiv Malka. So for Lubavitcher, what does it mean? It means this mimer. Right? Ana Nasiv Malka. V'yesh leimar. Shezeo gam diuk loshen admar zaken. If you read the words of the Alter Rebbe carefully, it's very interesting. Because the Rebbe just explained the loftiness of these levels that the Alter Rebbe is, so to speak, foregoing. Saying, look, I'm not interested. Wait, hold on. Let's just appreciate a little bit what it means, right? This Or Ein Sof Shelifnei Atzimtzum, the highest level of revelation possible. Not interested. Right? Why? It's not the Melech. It's the revelation of the Melech. It's the energy of the Melech. It's not the Melech. It's his table. It's not him. To be here, I have to be a very special person. But if I'm all about being here, then it's all about me working on becoming a very special person. I don't want to be a very special person. I just want truth. What's truth? The melech. Well, the Rebbe is a serious guy. And now the Rebbe makes an incredible diuk in it. Shezeo gam diuk loshen admar zoken. Ich will nit dein Gan Eden, your Gan Eden. Ich will nit dein Elam Haba. It's yours, meaning it's mamish. It's serious levels in Elokus. Da gam she Gan Eden ve'Elam Haba. That even though this Gan Eden and Elam Haba him dein Gan Eden, they're yours. There are these incredibly powerful levels of godly reality. Dein Elam Haba. The Neusif was in addition to the fact Giluim the Gan Eden the Elam Haba, that the revelations that exist in those worlds, those places, Atzmam Hem Giluim Nailim B'Yeser. These are very, very powerful levels of godly revelation. Misgale al Yodem Kol Masha Efsher Lizgalos Memar, and it's revealed through these levels of godliness all that can come into a state of revelation. There's aspects of reality that can't be revealed. Okay, they're beyond revelation. But everything that can be revealed is revealed in certain levels of godly light. Now the Rebbe says, not interesting. That's sitting at the king's table. It's an amazing thing to sit at the king's table, and we should all strive to sit at the king's table. But how do you sit at the king's table? By not wanting to sit at the king's table. You don't want to sit at the king's table. You want the king. Right? It's not what they call the prize you get when you don't get what you're supposed to get, The consolation prize. It's not a consolation prize. It's just what's life about, the Rebbe says. What's the pneumius of that medrash? Unbelievable. The king comes in with his entourage. The peacock wants the king. He's not interested in the entourage. So in Pshat, the entourage is all the shefa that you're going to get through the Ayin Sarim, which is what we saw at the beginning of the Maimer. And that's all true. But then there's a different level of the peacock. What does the peacock want? Eibishter. So what's the Eibishter? Where do you find the Eibishter? Give some stucco, put on tefillin, help a Jew, learn some Torah. Why? It's very hard for us. If we move ourselves out of the way, then it's the Eibishter. If it's still about me, learning Gemara, why? So I can learn how to learn a page of Gemara. I have to learn how to learn a page of Gemara. I have to do everything possible to learn how to learn a page of Gemara. There's no question. That's part of the process. And if I've if I basically figured out how to do that, so the next step I have to learn how to learn a Rashi. Okay. But that's not about me becoming a person who knows how to learn a page of Gemara. It's about me being a person who can encounter Atzmus. Because if you learn Torah, you're encountering Atzmus. It's not about me understanding. That's why I always make fun of you guys when it's after I got the pshat. It's like I hit a basket. It's like two guys 6'8" covered, whatever, shooting there. Oh. Atzmus. I don't know whether that'll be my reaction if I see Atzmus. Right? You can't. Right? Torah's the Eibishter. So therefore, I have to learn how to open the book. Why? Because it's the Eibishter. Right? I have to learn to open the book so that I'll be a certain type of person. There's that too. Right? There's no question there's that too. You want to be a type of person who can open the book so that your children will respect you when they know how to open the book because you sent them to schools that you didn't go to when you were a kid. All right? That's very important. Okay. But that's the nice chambers on the way in. But don't get stuck in the chambers on the way in. I mean, the way I end up becoming that person is by not worrying about that and just making sure that I'm doing what I'm doing. Why? Because this is what the Eibishter wants, and this is the Eibishter and its Atzmos. Right? It's what learning Torah is, as doing mitzvahs is. Whoa. Rebbe just puts it in a whole way to see what if I'm not there? Ooh, wow. We'll see what comes next in the mimer, and then I'll tell you that I told you about my daughter in this mimer, so we'll talk about it once we see what happens next. It's just unbelievable. Mikol Makam Eina Reitze B'hem, doesn't want it. V'kol Ritzenu Rak B'atzmus. Dich Alain. Amnam and the Alter Rebbe, what do they want? Rambam's right. That's what we were seeing up there. That's the Alter Rebbe. That's where the Rebbe just took us, right? What you saw, you said was absolutely right, because that's where the Rebbe takes us right away into this famous story of the Alter Rebbe. Right? And what's the Chiddush? Again, what's the Chiddush, the Alter Rebbe? He's not going to, there's not going to be any him there. It's not about me, it's about him. Right? If I'm completely absorbed in Elokus, what don't I feel? Elokus. Because there's no me. Whoa. Right? So now, if we're honest, which we're allowed to be sometimes, I think all of us would probably say, okay, I'm in. Alter Rebbe, I'm in. Rebbe, I'm into Atzmos. But you know what? I want to see what Gan Eden looks like first. I'd like to experience a little spirituality down there. It'd be cool. And then I'll know, well, then, okay, no. But it'd be nice just to see what that's like. Right? And then even think about, I remember sitting at JLI, and there was a shluch on campus. There was a young woman who had grown up through Chabad on campus, and then became very involved in things, and spent a little time in Mayanot, women's school, and she was madricha or something at JLI, and it's a Sinai Scholars Retreat, and that year there was an amazing Farbrengen. Chaim Baruch Lipsker was the one who was making it happen, but he was making it happen because he was bringing the Gashmis. I don't know where he was finding this stuff, but from right after lunch until about 3 a.m, we had to stop, obviously, to daven Minchen. We had to stop to daven Marvin. There was a concert, so some of the kids went to a concert. We didn't stop for bringing. We just kept going. He kept finding food. I don't know where he kept coming with these plates of roast beef, and he'd put it down. So every day I don't know where he was finding. He'd disappear and come back. So at some point, this Farbrengen lasted for 12 hours. So at some point I walked away, and this girl asked if she could talk to me. And it just, I didn't think of it. She just said something. So I remember she started to cry. It's a big problem when girls start crying when you're talking to them. There's nothing you can do. Here, take my wallet. But it was Shabbos. I couldn't do that either. So taking my wallet might make someone cry. I don't know, but no, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Abish, you're very good to us. She said, I just want to see the Rebbe once. She's crying like a baby. I just want to see the Rebbe once. Just once. So, because what have we got now? There's no Gilui. There's no revelation. Today, Chav Zayin Adar, what's Chav Zayin Adar? So it was 34 years ago today that the Rebbe got sick. And we haven't heard a Sikha since that day. Right? That was Tafshin Nun Beis, 36 years ago. No, 34 years ago. Chav Zayin Adar. It was a Monday. The day before was the longest, this year, the day before was the longest dollars ever. Dollars, the line was just crazy. And the next day, Rebbe was at the oil and fell at the oil. Came back to 770, and we never heard the Rebbe talk again. So then 2 years later, the Rebbe disappeared completely, right? From view. So what have we got? How many Gilui? Right? What have we got? Etzem. Right? The Etzem connection of a Rebbe to a Chassid and a Chassid to a Rebbe. Right? Rabbi Isaac Hummeler said, and the Rebbe quotes him. So if Isaac Hummeler said it, we'd say that he's just a blasphemer. And, he's a Chassidish Yid, unbelievable Chassid of the Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek, but okay. But very serious Chassid, but, this is a pretty wild statement. He said, but the Rebbe quotes him. Said that, how do you know Shlomo Melech wasn't a chassid? He said, Shlomo Melech wasn't a chassid. How do you know? Because when he wanted to write a mashal of love, he did a husband and a wife and not a Rebbe and a chassid. If he'd been a chassid, he would have realized the ultimate relationship of love is a Rebbe and a chassid.
Rabbi Levinger said that.
What?
Rabbi Levinger said that.
In the name of Yitzhak Isaac.
I know he said it before.
Okay, I'm saying that. I mean, it's Isaac Omler who said it, right? We want to bring Geula into the world, right? You just have to say these things in the name. I'm sure he did, right? Isaac Omler. But the Rebbe quotes him. If the Rebbe didn't quote him and we heard that, we'd probably be nervous saying it about Shlomo Melech, right? Shlomo Melech wasn't a chassid, right? He said, okay. So we don't have any revelation. Still stark. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Okay, we will stop here. Tomorrow again, the reason we're not stopping to do review is just because I do want to finish the mimer before we all disappear. Some people are disappearing today. Kol hakavod for making it to class. Kalman and Menachem are traveling. They should have. Did you talk to Rabbi Levinger? Did you get Rabbi Levinger?
A little bit, or we spoke to the shliach.
Yeah.
You talked to Aryeh Leib, and it was okay.
I think Turkey was better than Egypt. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
The guys who were before us had a little wrestle.
What in Turkey?
Nothing bad.
In
No,
Egypt.
In Egypt.
Right. No, but in terms of davening, you can daven. You should be able to daven in Turkey, right? Egypt, I know. Last year, Egypt would not let. I mentioned this year. They wouldn't let people daven. But that was Cairo, right?